You expect the refrigerator to keep stuff cold. You expect the stove to make things hot. You expect the toaster to pop up some bread. And if they just sitting there, they don't understand why they're here. Christians need to understand why we're here. We're here to be him in the world. And he defines himself as God is love. And we are to represent that in the world. So the question is, what do we mean by love? This word gets thrown around a lot. I love chocolate cake. I love ice cream. I love that movie. I love that place. We confuse the word love with like. Like involves an emotional attachment to something. When I like something, it means I enjoy it. That's the word like. But it gets substituted for the word love. The Greek word for love is agape. It's verb form agapao, and it has to do with a decision. Biblical love does not start with an emotion. It starts with a decision. Like starts with an emotion because it's how you feel about it. Biblical love may or may not include an emotion. That's why God can command you to love your enemies. He's not telling you to feel good about somebody that hates you. He's talking about making a decision. So let me give you a formal definition of biblical love. Biblical love can be defined as the decision to compassionately, righteously, responsibly, and sacrificially seek the well-being of another. Let me say that again. Biblical love is the decision to compassionately, righteously, responsibly, and sacrificially meet the need of somebody else. Okay? Love is a decision. That's why it can be commanded. Jesus called it the commandment. What is the great commandment? You should love the Lord your God and your neighbor. He says love is commandable, and you command decisions, not emotions. You can't command your emotions, but you can command a decision. So to love is to decide something. What you are deciding in biblical love is to be of benefit to somebody else that has a need. You're making a decision to execute compassion because of a need. Okay? So there's a need. You're going to be compassionate about it, and you make the decision. Once the decision is made and the action taken, love has been expressed, even if there's no feeling attached to it. Now, you want feeling because you want to like what you love. And that's good. We should want to like what we love, but we can also love what we don't like. Because biblical love, God so loved the world that he gave, he wasn't doing flips about the death of his son, but he saw a need. And because he saw a spiritual need, he made a decision, even though it was costly to his son. So love, biblical love, not cultural love, not Hollywood love, but God's love starts with a decision and often grows into a like. Okay? When a man says, I don't love my wife anymore, or the woman says, I don't love my husband anymore, what they're generally saying is, I don't like him or her. The emotion is gone, the fire is gone, the passion is gone. That's what what they do is they turn like into a love decision. But biblical love starts with a decision and it can grow into an emotion. He says in 1 John chapter 3 these words, verse 16. We know love by this, that he laid down his life for us. He did something based on our need. And we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. But whoever has the world's goods and sees his brother in need and closes his heart against him, how does the love of God abide in him? Little children, let us not love with word or with tongue, but in deed and in truth. Love is not just what you say, it's what you do. And the way you know you're not loving is you have the capacity to do it, the opportunity to do it, and you make yourself not do it. He says you close your compassion. That is, you force yourself. I'm not going to do it. You can, you should. There's an opportunity to, but you say, you force yourself away from it. That's why he says in verse 17, you close your heart. You shut it down. You decide not to love. You decide not to express it. He says, when that happens, the love of God is non-operative in you. That you're not operating with God's definition of love because like has gotten in the way. I don't like that situation. But the key is that you have to understand you were saved to be an aqueduct, not a reservoir. You were saved to be not a cul-de-sac, but a conduit. When God put his love on you and me, he wanted it to flow through you, not stop with you. The moment he sees his love to you stops with you, then there is a stopper in the sink of how God will relate to you. Because you're no longer being like him in the world. You know, you're being the opposite to the love that he defines. And so we are operating against the will of God. Now, chapter 3, again, verse 20 of 1 John. In whatever our hearts condemn us, for God is greater than our heart and knows all things. Beloved, if our heart does not condemn us, we have confidence before God. He says, when you love, like I am defining love, the decision to compassionately, responsibly, righteously, sacrificially meet the need of someone else, stay with me here. He says, the guilt you feel, the condemnation you feel for the stuff you've done, the failures you've had, the regrets that gnaw at you, the things you wish you could do over again, the do-overs that you can never, ever go back and fix, the people you've wounded, the mistakes you've made, the sins that have drove you down. He says, when your heart condemns you, God is greater than your heart. In other words, your heart is messing you up. It's driving you crazy. He says, but when you love, like I say love, the God who's greater than the condemnation that's killing you will overrule a heart that doesn't want to obey. And he says, I will be greater than the heart messing you up. So if you look back at yesterday and you've got regrets and pains and mistakes and failures and you can't do it over again and it gnaws at you, keeps you up at night when you see it being played on the television and it reminds you of who you were and who you are, he says, God says, I can overrule that, but I'm not just going to overrule that because you pray. I'm not going to just go overrule that because you go to church. I'm going to overrule that by the love I see. By how I am, you are in the world. When I see that, then I'll overrule your heart, which is being condemning you because of your actions. The thing that will motivate God to override yesterday and move you into tomorrow, and even the condemnation that comes with it, is when he sees the love because you want to be right with him. Our government allows for charitable deductions. In other words, when tax time comes, you write your deductions, and part of those deductions are gifts you've given to charity. The money you give to the church is a charitable deduction, and so you owe the government this much. But when they see you gave to this, you gave to that, you gave to that, and of course, you tithed to Oak Cliff. When he sees that you did this and you did this and you did this, your tax bill shrinks. Your tax bill, your obligation to Uncle Sam gets smaller because of your charitable contributions. Your failure, my failure, our failure with God may be like this. But when he sees love here, love here, love here, and 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 love here, he counts them as charitable deductions. And so even though you owe this much, when he looks at the love that you have demonstrated and shown, he then counts that against the obligation of our failure, giving us the opportunity to repair. The Bible says we were saved for good works. Ephesians 2:8-9, by grace are you saved through faith, that not of yourselves, is a gift of God, not according to works, so that no man should boast. Verse 10, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which he hath created beforehand, that we should walk in them. He says, I saved you in 8 and 9 so you could go to work in verse 10. I saved you for you to do something. You don't purchase an appliance for it to sit there. You expect the refrigerator to keep stuff cold. You expect the stove to make things hot. You expect the electric can opener to open some cans. You expect the toaster to pop up some bread. And if they just sitting there, they don't understand why they're here. Christians need to understand why we're here. We're here to be him in the world. And he defines himself as God is love. And we are to represent that in the world. But many of us are like teenagers who only come out of their room when they want something. Because when they're going to come out the room, we come to church when we want something. God says, I want something. And I want to see your love being expressed. God is not looking for celebrities. He's looking for kingdom servants. He's looking for people who will represent him with what he calls good works. Titus chapter 3, verse 4 says, it is the kindness of God that should be your motivation. Salvation is the biggest kindness, but there's everyday kindness. The regular stuff. Yeah, there's the big stuff we talk about, but then God is so good and so regular, you get used to him until something goes wrong. Good works. Well, I need to define good works. It says we are his workmanship created for good works. A good work is more than a good thing. Sinners can do good things. Atheists can do good things. You can have a person who hates God but is a good neighbor. Okay? In other words, you don't need a religion to do a good thing. But that's not a good work. A good work in the Bible is a good thing to which God has been attached. Matthew 5:16 says, let your light so shine that men see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. If God is not attached, it's a good thing, but not yet a good work. So a good work is the attachment of God to a good thing. Now, because God has been brought into the equation and God is love and you are representing God by the loving act that you do, now God is attached to the act, making it a good work for which you get credit for the future and also repair of the past. Because now you are involved in
veo mi destino, las estrellas me guían, no hay camino perdido, cada desafío lo enfrento sin temor, con el corazón valiente avanzo con amor. La vida es una danza en constante evolución, con cada paso firme busco mi redención. Voy a volar alto hasta el sol, nada me detiene, soy mi propio campeón. fuerza de mis sueños me lleva a conquistar. Cada día es un regalo, una razón para luchar. Con la mirada al frente y el alma sin temores, voy construyendo el mundo que late en mis colores. Voy a volar alto hasta el sol, nada me detiene, soy mi propio campeón. Con cada caída me levantaré, la llama en mi interior nunca se apagará. Nunca se apagará. Voy a volar alto hasta el sol, nada me detiene, soy mi propio campeón. Con cada caída me levantaré, la llama en mi interior nunca se apagará. Nunca se apagará.
Good works. You're involved in good works.
que no puedo lograr se convierten en fuerza para avanzar. El destino es incierto, pero yo soy capaz de superar cualquier obstáculo y llegar más allá. La vida es un viaje sin final, con cada paso me siento más real. Nada me detiene, no pararé, con fuerza y garra yo continuaré. En cada caída encuentro un nuevo renacer. Soy más fuerte de lo que puedo creer. El miedo se disipa cuando empiezo a luchar. No hay barrera que me pueda frenar. Sigo adelante sin mirar atrás. Los sueños son míos y los voy a alcanzar. El destino es incierto, pero yo soy capaz. Yo soy capaz de superar cualquier obstáculo y llegar más allá. La vida es un viaje sin final, con cada paso me siento más real. Nada me detiene, no pararé, con fuerza y garra yo continuaré. En cada caída encuentro un nuevo renacer. Soy más fuerte de lo que puedo creer. El miedo se disipa cuando empiezo a renacer. Cuerpo en el que me no puedo orar. Soy más tolerante sin mirar atrás. Yo no voy a los pasos más sin garra a alcanzar. El destino es incierto, pero yo soy capaz de superar cualquier obstáculo y llegar más allá. La vida es un viaje sin final, con cada paso me siento más real. Nada me detiene, no pararé, con fuerza y garra yo continuaré. En cada caída encuentro un nuevo renacer. Soy más fuerte de lo que puedo creer. El miedo se disipa cuando empiezo a luchar. No hay barrera que me pueda frenar, frenar, frenar. Sin mirar, frenar, frenar. Sigo adelante sin mirar atrás. Los sueños son míos y los voy a alcanzar. Los sueños son míos y los voy a alcanzar. Los sueños son míos y los voy a alcanzar. Los voy a alcanzar. Son míos y los voy a alcanzar. Los sueños son míos y los voy a alcanzar.